No matter how much is going on in my life, it is never going to happen that we don't have one of these. We needed it. We need it today. Where would my integrity be if the siren didn't come out after everything that we saw at the Wrestlemania Kickoff press event, which, by the way, every press event should have an arena full of fans. I think it really adds to everything that's going on. So here we are, WrestleMania Kickoff, the road to WrestleMania. And technically at the press event, we didn't get the official word. We were left with more questions than answers until the graphic was posted. Triple H posted the graphic. And if you've been listening to this podcast, if you've been watching this podcast for any length of time, you should know that for me, it ain't official until I see a graphic. And I saw one, and the graphic said that the main event for WrestleMania 40 is Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. Now, I'm going to talk about this very much in depth on Monday morning, and I'm sure throughout the week. But this is, of course, an emotional support podcast. We have to get our feelings out. If we keep them bottled up inside, they'll do terrible things to our bodies. So that's what we're here to do today. So we'll talk about the whole press event on the Monday podcast, but let's just get to the meat and potatoes of this. Let's just get into what we saw and what we need to get off our chest. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins come out. They have their back and forth. Roman Reigns says because Cody missed his moment, he gets to now pick the main event for WrestleMania. I'm sitting there going, I don't understand how that happens, how somebody can just miss their moment. And the beauty of it is that Seth Rollins said the same thing. That's not how it works, dude. You can't just do that, man. I don't care if I got bows on my shoes. You can't just decide it's your time to pick the main event of WrestleMania because you're the tribal chief, because you're the head of the table. Those aren't the rules. Those aren't the rules of engagement that we agreed to before this battle. No. Roman said, yeah, they are. That's the era that we're living in right now. And I'm going to decide that the main event for WrestleMania is The Rock. Now, look. I said when all this controversy broke, the key here is you got to let them cook. You have to. And whether this was always the plan or whether this was a plan they developed in the last 5 days, hats off. If you figured out all of these moves within the last 5 days, you have a hell of a group of people that know how to work in a pressure cooker. And if this was something that was planned out well in advance, then my God, do you have some narrators on your staff? Either way, we come out of this. I feel like everybody smells like roses to an extent. Anyway, let's talk about it, right? You got to let them cook. And now the food all of a sudden smells good. People said this. They said, you say let him cook. The food smells like shit. I go, that's because it's raw. You're not letting it cook. Now the food smells pretty good, I think, right? So everything counts. And the reason that this is another example of rule number 3, everything counts, is that Seth Rollins said that's not how it works. Because we at home are saying that's not how it works. Our voice is a part of the story. Our interpretation of what we're seeing is a part of the story. The fact that for the last 6 days, the internet has been in an absolute frenzy of loathsome attacks on anyone who believes that The Rock should face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. It tells you everything you need to know. The fact that the Cody Crybabies are a real thing, and some of it wear that Crybaby badge like a badge of honor. The fact that that's happening and not being ignored means that everything counts. So Roman comes out and he goes, I picked The Rock. The Rock comes out. And by the way, The Rock didn't get rained out with boos. He didn't get rained out with cheers either. There were boos there. But he did, like the internet would have you believe that The Rock is not going to be able to step foot into a building without getting booed into smithereens. But he did not get booed into smithereens. He got booed, but not into smithereens is the point. And he comes out and he's doing his Rock thing. People are just excited. He's a big star. The Rock is there, and he's, oh, do you think The Rock's going to beat Roman Reigns? Do you think Roman Reigns is going to beat The Rock? And there's something about this that seems contrived. Something about it that seems cheesy. When you're watching, going like, oh, this is This is spoon-fed professional wrestling is what this feels like. And The Rock was the biggest match in the history of WWE. And it's like, again, on paper, yeah. On paper, yes, it is. But when we look at it in front of us, with all of the ingredients as they've been laid out, it no longer feels that way. Because of the time that it's happening in. And because of the story that got us to where we are. And so you go, is it? And then The Rock thanks the press for being there. And I go, what kind of shill? What kind of Hollywood shill thanks the press for being at a press event? Puts the press? He thanked the WWE Universe, but he thanked the press first. And he thanked the press twice. And then he said, if you don't want to see The Rock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, it doesn't matter what you think. I said, okay, all right. I smell what he's cooking now. And then The Rock puts up this graphic and says, you got to respect this. And it's a really well-made graphic, right? If it were a bad graphic, you'd go, oh, I know where this is going. This is storyline. But it's a great graphic. And it's laying out the whole family tree. And it's true. There is no family in the history of professional wrestling like the Anoa'i Samoan Dynasty Bloodline family. It's an unbelievable story that we'll have to get into at a certain point. But then he says this. You have to look at this, he says, and understand that there really is only one powerful royal family in wrestling. What? Only one royal family? I had heard this song that said there's more than one royal family. There's only one? That's when Cody Rhodes comes out. He says this is BS. He uses the BS word. And he comes out and he says, you know, he talked to The Rock and they had a great conversation and he talked to a lot of people. He says, you know, Roman, you talk about your family. They're not your family. They're lackeys. There's no family loyalty. They're just following a breadwinner. Matter of fact, the High Chief Peter Maivia and your grandfather, The Rock, both would be disappointed in what they see. That's what he said. And he says, Roman, I challenge you at WrestleMania. And at this point, now, key is that as Cody was saying this, before he even said the family stuff, from the moment that he came out, they shifted positions on the stage so that The Rock and Roman Reigns were on the same side looking at Cody Rhodes. This wasn't a trifecta. There was no... And when The Rock started defending his family like that, it didn't feel like The Rock all of a sudden decided Roman and I have a common enemy. It felt more like Cody Rhodes had come out and spoiled The Rock's plans. My question last week on the podcast was, why did Cody, how can Cody go back to the main event of WrestleMania if he said he wasn't going to do it at WrestleMania after he talked to The Rock? With one emailer said he could just say that he lied or whatever. And it's like, no, he can't say that he lied. But if The Rock didn't just decide in that moment, oh, now Cody Rhodes is an enemy, then what was going through The Rock's mind? What was clearly going through The Rock's mind was that bigger than any other family in wrestling, bigger than the WWE even, is his family that Roman Reigns is a part of. That this was always just about putting on the biggest match in the history of WWE. And why was it the biggest match in the history of the WWE? Because it was about his family. This whole time, it was about The Rock and Roman Reigns making sure that the main event of the biggest WrestleMania of all time was all about the bloodline. It was all about their family. And that The Rock manipulated Cody into thinking that that's not what it was about. Into thinking that, no, we have to take away this power from Roman Reigns. No, we have to take away the tribal chief from Roman Reigns. When in reality, The Rock and Roman both just wanted to make sure the bloodline headlined WrestleMania on the biggest stage that the WWE has ever had. And Cody finally saw through that after a week of tweets after listening to The Rock on Pat McAfee's show, talking about the Cody crybabies. Well, that was just Pat McAfee's show, right? No, everything counts. I thought I told you that. Everything counts. Even on an emergency podcast, everything counts. No. Now you're talking about Cody crybabies. Why? Because fans want to see me in the main event of WrestleMania? Well, maybe your family isn't the nucleus that we all kind of revolve around. Maybe your family is just one story that has to do with the WWE, and my story is just as important as yours is, and in 2024, my story is more important than yours is. And now we get the real Rock, right? This character that represents the real Rock. Now this Rock that we've heard about on the internet, this guy that is selfish, this guy that when he signed up to be a member of the board of directors for TKO, part of the deal, I read this in wrestling newsletters of importance. The people who give us the scoops, they told us in a legitimate way. No. When The Rock signed up to be on the board of TKO, part of it was he was going to get the main event of WrestleMania. And as fans, we don't like that. That's selfish, Rock. That's not best for business, Rock. That's best for Rock. We don't like that at all. And that's the guy that came out on television. That's the guy who started yelling at Cody Rhodes about keeping his family's name out of his mouth. That's the guy who slapped Cody Rhodes. And I don't think it was all because Cody Rhodes disrespected the Anoa'i dynasty. I think it was also because Cody Rhodes decided to stand up for himself and spoil the plans of The Rock and Roman Reigns. And to me, my favorite part of the whole thing, was when Rock and Roman Reigns are walking off and they pass by Triple H, who's doing an interview. And The Rock is telling Triple H to fix it. You're going to let him run his mouth like that? That's BS. Hey, fix it. Triple H goes, you're out of line, and you know you're out of line. Rock goes, no, fix it. Now, we're looking at a storyline, yeah. But we're also looking at a member of the board of directors of TKO acting in self-interest against the head of creative in WWE. The Rock is the corporate heel. And Triple H is the guy that's just trying to give fans the product that they want. And we are off to the races for WrestleMania. I mean, I don't know. Seth Rollins has to fit in somewhere in this, right? It feels like at some point, and maybe it'll be in Perth, we're going to get Rollins and Cody teaming up against Rock and Reigns. And I think that's a big possibility. At one point, I go, where are we going? Are we going to do Cody versus Rock night 1? Cody versus Roman night 2? All these night 1, night 2 things, nobody ever really suggested Cody versus Rock and then Cody versus Roman because we were so fixed on Rock versus Roman. But when The Rock, as a member of the board of directors, is telling Triple H he needs to fix it, and he's walking out with Paul Heyman, with Roman Reigns, you know what makes the Bloodline even bigger than doing Roman Reigns versus The Rock? If The Rock is aligned with the Bloodline. What about that? What if on this road to WrestleMania, The Rock is actually aligned with the Bloodline? How did none of us go, yeah, that's exactly where they should go. Just lean all the way in and not worry about doing Rock versus Roman Reigns anymore. And now we've got this poster that says it's Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I don't know that we'll ever know exactly how we got here. I don't know that we'll ever know the whole truth. And I don't know that we have to. You know, because you've got all these questions, right? Like, you go, well, clearly they didn't expect everybody to turn on The Rock like that. So they had to pivot. I never want to hear that word pivot again, by the way. Here's 2 things I don't want to hear anymore. Accusations of pivoting, as if it's a good or a bad thing. Everybody should always pivot. figure out what's going on, read the room, pivot. It's good stuff. Always pivot. So this description of pivoting like it's a bad thing is absurd. And the idea of like asking if a storyline, are we getting worked by this storyline? Yeah, of course. It's a storyline. Yeah. Those are two things we never need to hear again. But was this something, a pivot, or was this always the plan? Well, I read everywhere that Roman Reigns versus The Rock was cemented. Oh, it's happening. Oh, it's happening. Oh, it's happening. And you go, okay, there's a huge possibility that in the last 6 days, The Rock, who's very aware of the way the public is responding to him, went like, well, we got to do something else. This isn't going to work. That's very, very possible. And it makes sense. Except it doesn't answer why Cody won the Royal Rumble. If this wasn't always the plan, then why did Cody win the Royal Rumble? And because there are so many questions there, I don't think we'll ever know. And you know what? I don't think we ever have to know. I don't think it ever matters. What difference does it make? The fact is that fans and the way they're responding to what's going on are going to dictate stories as they should, because everything counts. And the way the fans react count towards the story, whether that's intentional or not. It's cohesive. And that, to me, is what you need on a wrestling show. Cohesion. What we saw at the kickoff press event was a cohesive way to get to a place where I think most fans are happy. I'm going to give it a few days. I'm going to fully unpack it. These are my feelings coming off of it. Adored the way it all went down. I love Bloodline corporate Rock not getting along with head of content, chief content officer, Triple H. And you can tap into all those sort of internet rumors of the fact that these guys didn't get along back in the Attitude Era. These guys, I mean, there's so much here. And we're getting it all. And I absolutely love it. I can't wait to talk more about it. By the way, I know that we didn't have like a ton of emergency podcasts this week, but I also hosted The Bump. The Bump was kind of like an emergency podcast too, okay? So that counts. I think it counts. Appreciate you all. See you Monday. This has been an emergency.